Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me voice actress Brittany Cox. So welcome to the show.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, I am very excited too. And obviously, I mean, you've been in a bunch of roles from everything from Ingrid from Fire Emblem to Lisa and Jupiter from Pokemon Masters, Josie Jane from WWE 2K22, and Fina from Fina and the Pirate Princess, to name a few. And we're going to get to all of that. But I think the best place to start is, and I'm curious, is how you got into voice acting, because you are newer, but you're not brand new either.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I am pretty new. Well, compared to some of my colleagues, I've been doing video game VO and anime and that kind of stuff only for about 5-6 years. So I'm still pretty young compared to other people. But yeah, so I came from a theater and on-camera background. So I was doing a lot of regional theater. And I was doing on-camera commercials and like indie films and all that stuff. And I just kind of fell into voiceover. My husband was working at a recording studio in Seattle called Bad Animals. And I was bringing him lunch or something one day, and his boss was like, "Hey, you're an actor, right? We need somebody to do a line. Just jump in the booth." I was like, "Okay." So I did. And I get out and they were like, "Oh, you're not bad." And I was like, "Oh, this is so much fun. Okay, this is great." And so then, yeah, I was really bad for like a year. I just kept training and working and practicing. And then I booked my first video game while we were up in Seattle. Do you remember the 1-2 Switch that came out with the Nintendo Switch? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
It's like
Vaguely.
it was one of those games where it teaches you how to use the controller. So that was my first video game. So I yell at people a lot in that game. I'm like, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, pose. Like it was just ridiculous. So yeah, and so after that, I moved to LA, and I've been here for 6 years and have been working in VO ever since.
So let's actually dive into that a little bit,
Yeah.
because obviously anime and video games are very different in how
Hmm.
they're done. I'll just say it might get you and me in a little bit of trouble, but video games pay a little bit better, or a lot better, than anime does sometimes.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I don't think it's a secret. And if it
Yeah.
is, well, I just ruined it for everybody. I'm sorry. But also, even the structure of how a video game is done is
Mhm.
different too, because a lot of it, I guess, is more similar to original animation versus dubbing. And so, what is that like to come into that sector? And also, video games to some degree are morely distributed across multiple sectors as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, working in video games is great. Sometimes it can be kind of similar to a dub in that, if we're translating a game like Genshin Impact, for example, English is not the original language. So sometimes we have to fit within the time limit that the original language does. But for the most part with video games, we kind of get to do what we want. Like game I'm in, Lego 2K Drive just came out. And we got to improv, we got to play and do all this crazy stuff. I laughed so hard. And so we get a lot more freedom than you would with doing an anime dub, where we have to fit the mouth flaps and we have to make sure that we're matching what is happening already on screen. So it's a different technique, but it has its own challenges, and they're both creatively fun. It's just finding the differences between the two.
Yeah, let's actually get into some of this. And you mentioned a few, but I want to start with, I think, the one that a lot of people know. And it's kind of the one that is a fun one to play, and that's Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that
And
was
so,
my first big video game.
and I think that's your character.
Yep, that's Ingrid.
And so, how did this all come about? Because Fire Emblem is a legendary game. It's a big franchise. It's been around forever. It's
Yeah.
well respected, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a complicated game to play sometimes.
Yeah, my husband's currently playing through Three Houses right now, and I'm watching him play, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what do you do now? Oh my god,
If
let's
you
just do the."
die with your character, everybody, you do not come back.
Yeah, I know. It's like, "What? No! Ah!" So stressful. But yeah, honestly, when I booked Fire Emblem, I didn't know it was Fire Emblem, and I didn't know how big the game was, and I didn't know I was a bigger character. I thought I'd be like a tiny little character when I got cast, and I come in the first day, the Nintendo team is there and the director's there, and they're like, "Okay, so here's a picture of your character. This is Ingrid." And I was like, "Okay, cool. She's cute." And they said, "Okay, so we're going to be working together for like the next couple years." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, she's like in one of the houses. She comes back all the time." And I was like, "What? Oh my god!" Because it was my first real big video game where I'm like playing a character. I go on an arc. She does things. She has feelings and thoughts and emotions, and it was so much fun. So much fun.
So to even dive into that too, because it is a major character, maybe not a major character, but an important character
Yeah.
and a recurring character. And so, how did you find her voice? Because she does have a massive role in
Yeah.
this, and she does come back, and it's significant. And what was that entire experience like for you? Because when you came into this, you didn't know anything that was coming out in the game after this one, and then the third game
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So what was that like?
Yeah, well, luckily, it just so happened with Ingrid, she's pretty close to me, like as a human and as a vocal print. So when I came into audition, they had me audition for a bunch of different things, and we tried different voices and played with different things in the booth. That was in the days where you go in and audition in person. And when I got cast, they pulled and I came in for the first recording. They were like, "Hey, so the client, Nintendo, actually likes your voice. Like, you are her. So just do you." And I was like, "Okay, great." So for her, it made finding her so easy because it's just me existing and reacting. And, we have very different circumstances. I do not have a fiance who has passed away, thank goodness. But yeah, so it made it fun. We could play.
I don't know if you're back.
Oh, did I cut out?
Yeah, for like 10 seconds.
Oh no! Oh no! Where did you drop off? I can
No, I think you
rehash.
were finished. I think you were finished. You were just
Okay.
like freeze for 1 second. I was like, oh snap. Like
I hope it was like a really embarrassing pose where it was like, those are the best.
oh my gosh, there's so many things I could say to that. My favorite one ever was when the guy who was a lawyer put the cat filter on his Zoom meeting.
It was so funny.
And then he said, "I'm ready to continue." Was perfect. Oh, brilliant. But that is a far cry from Fire Emblem for sure. Um, but even to go further into Fire Emblem, because obviously you were in Heroes, and then it went to Three Houses to Three Hopes. I think that was the latest one, or
Mhm.
the latest one you were in at least.
Yeah.
And so, what was that like when you knew you were coming back for another game? And then another game, because that doesn't happen sometimes in video games and anime. People get recast, things get shifted around. Sometimes
Sure.
a game doesn't have any voices in it, technically. And so, what was that like when you got called back and then you're reprising the same character?
It's so funny because I never expect to come back. I'm always like, "Oh, I messed it up. They're gonna go with somebody else." So I never count on it. And then and we never know like when a game is going to have a new game. Like as actors, we don't know because nobody's talking about it. It's all super NDA. So when they told me that they're bringing Ingrid back in new games and stuff, I was so excited. And coming back in to record, it felt like coming back home, because it's a character that I spent so much time with, especially for that first game, especially Three Houses. And coming in for Three Hopes, I hadn't recorded for a couple of years at that point. And hearing the other actors and knowing the conversations and the other characters that she's talking to, I'm like, I know all these people. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I know what's happening. You don't have to tell me. I got it. It's like any of her conversations with Sylvain. I'm like, oh, I know Sylvain. We got this. It's fine. I know what he sounds like. I know where this is going.
So to dive into this and go further, do you also feel that, because as a fan, I like when an actor, a voice actor, reprises that role. And I like that familiarity. And look, I understand that things happen in anime, things happen in video games, things happen in television where you need to move people around and anything could happen or people move on or whatever. But do you feel that it's also nice for the fans knowing that, hey, they're familiar with this character's voice and the way you do her character? And that, because I'll use Naruto as an example. It's really important for me as a fan that the voice actor does the character in the anime and in the video games, because I want that continuality. And I understand that sometimes it doesn't work, but you can't be avoided. But for me, I like having, I guess, the authenticity to it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, because every actor is different. Like, even if an actor sounds very similar, understands the character, their version is always going to be slightly different. Like, for example, Batman, any of the Batman animated movies and stuff. We now have a bunch of different Batmans, and not just Kevin Conroy. And they all bring a slightly different flavor. They're all good, but they all bring their own flavor, and they're ones I prefer versus others. Doesn't mean they're bad. And so I totally feel that. And as an actor, it's always nice that, people like what you do. That's always a nice feeling. And it always feels good to step back into a character, especially if you love the character, which is so nice. And it's great for the fans. Like, as a fan myself of different properties and stuff, you get used to hearing a voice. You get used to what's going on, and you emotionally connect to that character, right? And the voice is a part of it. It's all a part of it. So when it changes, it can be a little disruptive. Not saying that's bad, but as an actor, it is always nice to come back in and be back invited.
And then I want to jump out of Fire Emblem, and I like Fire Emblem. I am not the Fire Emblem expert, so I will not definitely pigeonhole myself into that. By a long shot, I won't do that. But I am more of a Pokemon expert than Fire Emblem expert, and I love Pokemon. And you got to work on a bunch of stuff in Pokemon. I think you were Jupiter, which is a Team Galactic commander.
Yep.
And so what is that like? Because that's the exact opposite in so many ways of Ingrid. And I think this is Jupiter. And kind of fun. And being a bad guy is, I guess, fun too. And I like Team Galactic though. So
right. She was my first time being a baddie. And she's the second character I've gotten to play in Masters. And so I already knew the team, so that was nice. It was coming back. But it was so cool to be mean, because I don't get to do that often, especially with characters. Like, I can count on one hand the number of like straight up mean characters I've gotten to play. So it's kind of funny being snarky and like, what? Okay, go on, So it was really fun. And those sessions are bananas. They're so quick. And, you do the lines a couple of times and then it's like, okay, next. Okay, bye, thanks. Because they just have so much that they're doing.
And then also, I think you did Lisa as well. Who's a contestant, an idol contestant. Obviously not as evil as Jupiter.
No.
Way more fun, way more. I think she's from like the Hoenn region, and she's like a contest. Again, very different.
Very different.
So what was that
dazzling, dizzying. She's bananas. She's exhausting. Every time I have a session for her, I'm like, I need a nap, because she's like big cheerleader energy. Yeah, she was great. And she was actually, my session recording for her was the last in-person session I did before the COVID shutdown, before we all got locked down. That was my last in-person session. So it always stands out to me of like, oh God, I was so tired, but wow.
And then obviously you're also in Pokemon Journey,
Hmm.
and
With Sonia.
Pokemon Journey, that was Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's so many seasons on Netflix. But yeah, I got to be Sonia, the professor's assistant. So I got to go on an adventure with Go and hang out with Ash a little bit for a couple of seasons, which was really fun.
And so what was this like? Because obviously you've touched the Pokemon video game side.
Mhm.
You've obviously done some stuff in the anime and the next generation of the anime, which
Mhm.
because I divide. I'm 30. So I grew up watching Pokemon before going to school. And
Yeah,
I
same.
remember going to GameStop when the game came out, and then the Panera was like right next to it. And I was so excited because you got your cool stylus and your 3DS, you got your little statue. Oh, it's great. Good times. Um, but 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 what is that like? Because this is sort of the next generation of Pokemon
Mm.
that you've been involved in. And it's, I guess, a bucket list, I would imagine. I think every voice actor wants to do something in Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Digimon, things of that nature. Naruto is a good example, too. One Piece
Yeah.
is like a bucket list of stuff. So, what was that like for you? Because not everybody gets to be in Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was crazy. I did not expect to be in the show. That was such a surprise because I grew up with the show as well. Like I used to love watching it with my brother. We would watch it after school every day. Um, and so when I got it was an in-person audition, and they didn't tell me what it was for. Somebody reached out and they were like, "Hey, so and so referred you and said you'd be great for this project. We want you to come in to audition." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I show up and they show me. We were dubbing to some of the scenes, and I was like, "I know what this is. Oh my god, what?" And I don't. I didn't audition for Sonia. I remember I auditioned for a bunch of other characters, and I didn't get it, and I didn't hear from them for like a year and a half, 2 years, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I botched it. I screwed it up. I'm never working in this town again. That was my one chance. It was terrible. Whatever. And then I got an email, and they were like, "Hey, so you're Sonia in Pokemon. What's your availability?" And I was like, "What? Oh my god!" So it was definitely a very cool experience, and working. It's a very different team than the video game team. They all have their own thing, and so working on the show was a lot more grounded. This iteration of Pokemon Journeys was a lot more grounded and theatrical acting with Sonia, even though she's super quirky. So it wasn't as silly and as exuberant as Pokemon Masters. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and being around all these characters, some of these characters that I grew up with, and saying the names were so hard of some of these Pokemon. I was like, I don't know. How do we say this? What? Because when you're looking at it written, it looks so different. And then when you're recording, the band is moving so fast that you're doing paragraphs of lines of like, oh, hey, Go. Okay, what are we doing today? Okay. And then Pokemon name. And it's like, oh, sorry, what? How do we say this? So imagine like reading a karaoke band that you've never read before for the first time, and you get this like 7-syllable Pokemon name. It makes it a challenge, but it's super fun. And it's such a good show. If you guys haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's so fun.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, and to even go further into this, also with it being on Netflix, I mean, I'm a
Mm,
big Netflix guy. I love Netflix on a lot of levels. I think what they're doing is brilliant,
mm,
and they're an innovator in what they do. And the fact that they have Pokemon, and I hate to say this, but the next generation isn't watching cable.
Yeah.
it's on Netflix and they're
Hmm.
watching Pokemon. And so what is that like? Because I think Netflix has like 200 million subscribers. Maybe not 200 million, but they got a lot is the point.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of distribution. So what is that like for you? Because anytime you have a show that is either Netflix exclusive or Netflix has the right to it, or they are leasing the rights to it that you're in, it's a big, 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 distribution chain to be involved in.
Yeah, it would be nice to get some of residuals for that. Like you would on cable, when things play on cable, we get residuals of like, oh, people are watching. So we don't get that with streaming, which is unfortunate, even though so many people watch it. But it is very cool to be like scrolling on Netflix and like, oh, the new season's up. Like it pops up on my previously watched or in your list. And it's always so cool to have shows that I'm in on Netflix, because then that's when I get calls from people I went to high school and college with, and they're like, hey, my kid's watching this show and I heard you. What? And so that's always a fun experience. And it's nice because I can because my parents don't play video games. So I can be like, oh, mom, go on Netflix, go watch this thing, like episode 5 on season 10, skip to minute 5 and you can hear me. So that's always fun.
No, Netflix is brilliant, and the fact that they have Pokemon is just it is a game changer. Me and Lisa Ortiz spoke about that for 10
I
minutes.
love her. She's
So
wonderful.
good. She's so good. Her and her Amy Rose just
Such a wonderful human.
I'm a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I should have. I got to celebrate, I think, the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog with Ian Flynn, and I should have invited Lisa Ortiz to that. And when I was doing that, and I should have invited Colleen O'Shaughnessy, and that would have been because Colleen plays Tails.
Yeah.
And then I had a wrestling friend who's a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan, and oh my god, I would have broke him. I would have broke him. He would have been like broken, and he's.
I love it when that happens.
He would owe me for life is the point, but he's a good friend now, so that's not the point. But I want to get out of Pokemon and into another big one, which is Genshin Impact.
Oh yeah,
and this is the one I know the least about because I actually haven't played any of this.
Oh sure,
I've seen it. It looks awesome, but I don't know anything about it except that it's really popular. It's really popular. That's the only thing I know, and apparently it's loved, and that's as far as I know about it. But I know it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing with Genshin, I think their timing was brilliant. So we started recording for Genshin started recording before COVID, but then it released right around lockdown. So everyone was home, and it's free to play. Like you could technically play Genshin Impact and never pay a single thing, which is amazing. You can also pay to get extra perks and things like that. But so there's no barrier to who can play. And it was just perfect timing. I think that's why it got so big. Because I remember when we were first recording, it was beautiful. Like we saw all the artwork and everything. But talking to the director, Chris, we didn't know how big it was going to be. We were all like, oh yeah, another video game. We'll be in and out of this in a year. And we've been recording for this game for 3-4 years now. Like it's been a long time. And my character in particular, Fischl, who is very silly with her crazy German name, the Prinzessin de Verurteilung. I thought people would hate her because, her lines, I know you haven't played the game, but her lines are like little monologues. She speaks like she's in a Shakespearean play because she's playing a character. And I was like, oh man, the fans are going to hate her. Like nobody's going to want to play her, but people really enjoy her. So that was like such a nice surprise because I love voicing her. I love playing her. So it always makes me feel really good when people relate to her and love her, and even with her silly words that she says.
So there's two things I want to touch upon. And you mentioned that you thought people were going to hate her. But
Mm.
what is that like when people fall in love with a character? I mean, it happens in TV where sometimes the bad guy is supposed to, wrestling's a better example.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a heel that the crowd's like, no, 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 this guy's not the heel. And we can't be against this person. And I've
Right.
spoken to a lot of wrestlers. And sometimes what happens in the middle of a match is the heel has to go over as the baby face, which is the
Mm.
good guy, and the good guy has to become the heel, and it's happened. And so, what is that like for you when people love a character and they really gravitate? And they're like, they're gonna kind of, I think they're gonna hate this character and the way she speaks, because it's really interesting that I feel fans now in anime and in a lot of things have a lot of control, more so than any other time.
Mm. No, it is. It does make a difference. It's, speaking for myself, it's always such a nice surprise because you never know how people are going to feel. Like, I know how I feel about the character. I know how I feel voicing the character and everything, but you never know, like, how it's going to be. I feel very lucky that a lot of the characters I've played, people gravitate towards or like, or, whatever. So I feel very lucky in that because that's not always the case. And it's just been the fandoms are such welcoming communities, at least in my experience, which has been so nice. And yeah, to your point, fans make a difference. They really do. They're the ones watching. They're the ones consuming. They're the ones who are supporting these shows because studios can't make shows if there's no one who wants to watch them. And so by having such fan support makes all the difference for us. Like, I just started going to conventions this past year for the first time ever, which has been so exciting. The fact that people are requesting that I come see them in their hometown, like, that's so cool. I love doing that. And it makes me excited to do it more because that was a world I didn't know a ton about. And yeah, so fans have a lot of control, which is very cool. And it just makes me so happy that people have found things that they relate to and that supports them and gets them maybe through a tough time or brightens their day a little bit. I know there are things that do that for me. And so it always makes me so happy when people share that maybe a character I voice or a property I'm a part of did that for them.
And then the other thing I want to dive into, and there's been a bunch of stuff, obviously, Fire Emblem is similar to this, is that there's a concept of the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm.
And, Genshin seems to be that. If you're still recording 3-4 years into when this game came out, I mean, that's a gift that keeps on giving. And what is that like? Because I'm going to drop a little secret, acting and getting work is sometimes hard
Yeah.
and it's not easy. And it can come and go, for lack of a better word. And if I ruin that for everybody, I'm sorry. Yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
What is that like for you that you're still able to record and that there's still content and that still needs to be updated? And obviously, this isn't stopping, at least not, in the temporary for a little while, at least, if ever.
Yeah.
And so, because it's kind of cool when you have something that keeps on giving you more and more airtime. Because again,
Yeah.
every game does that, not every show does that, not every gig does that, and so on and so forth.
No, it's really nice. I say for most of us, the experience is a nice surprise because it's like, oh gosh, I don't have to audition. Thank goodness. I already have it. Great. It's coming back. Because we don't always know when things are coming back. Like for Genshin, I never know if Fischl's going to be in a new event, if she's going to be in a new storyline or things like that until they call me and say, hey, we're recording. What are you doing next week? So there's no way to know. So it's always like a nice surprise. And to your point about, yes, acting is hard, getting jobs is hard. For those of you listening who are, wanting to get into acting and all that stuff, do it. Like, absolutely. But the expectation is, if you book 10% of the things you're auditioning for, you're doing great. That is a really good number. So that's like, you're going to book 10 out of 100 things that you try out for. And that's really good. So I mean, it's a journey. We've all been there. We all get turned down all the time. I have a stack of no's in my back pocket. It's all part of the journey. And it just leaves room for a yes at some point. So
My favorite quote, it's Joel Osteen. He's like, you have to knock on 37 doors and one door gets shut in your face. And he says, thank you. Now I have to knock on 36 more doors.
yeah.
And so the theory behind the quote is that if you get a no, it just eliminates, now lowers your number of how many doors you have to knock on to get a yes. And it's very, 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 it seems like a negative quote, but it's a positive one.
Yeah. And the great thing, especially with voice acting, is when you're auditioning and stuff, even if you don't book that role, they might remember you and book you off that audition for something totally different. That happened with me with Fallout. I didn't audition for Fallout, but they had heard my audition for something else. And I woke up one morning and they were like, hey, you're booked for this game. And I was like, what? So it happens all the time. You never know. So, when you're auditioning, put your best foot forward every time. You never know.
It's also networking. Networking is king.
Mm-hmm. It's all about trust. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And then I'm a huge WWE fan, so I have to talk about this role because I'm a huge WWE fan. It's not the greatest picture.
Josie.
Big WWE fan, big John Cena fan, big WWE autograph collector, all sorts of stuff. I'm a shareholder of that company. It's great. I'm super excited for them fusing with UFC. Oh, it's going to be great. But what's the story behind that? Because this is kind of a weird one for you. No offense. Like this was not on my bingo card with you.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. I'm a big sport. Like I grew up playing sports, so I'm very familiar with sports and things like that. I thrive in those environments. And so when I got WWE, I was like, okay, let's go. And playing her was just so much fun. It was so fun. She didn't have a ton to like, our session wasn't super long to record her lines, but the cool thing I got to do with this game is I got to do the facial cap for over half of the professional female wrestlers. So all of those women, what they did that they had in the game, like the actual female wrestlers, is they would record them saying their line that was going to be in the game. I would come into the studio. I had this crazy like headgear on that had a little tiny camera down here and had microphones all around. And what they would do is they would show me a picture of the woman of who was saying these lines, and then they would play the lines in my headphones, and I'd have to voice along to their dialogue, but how their face would. So if they had a lot of Botox, I would have to talk like this. Or if they did this, I'd have to talk like this. Or like, excuse me, I don't think so. So I would have to try and get their face and their attitude and say it along with them so that the animators could animate their face like to what my facial shape was doing and try and match it so it doesn't look like super crazy. You know what I mean? Because those wrestlers, they don't have time to do that stuff. So that was so much fun getting to know all those ladies and, do really bad impressions of them.
Oh my God, I could just imagine you doing Nikki Bella. I could just imagine it. I could just imagine.
Yeah, she was fun. She was fun. And we just had a blast doing that. Cause they're doing their monologues, right? They're like, this is what it is.
It's a promo.
Exactly. And then, when they're actually wrestling and stuff, I had to take some hits, had to spit, all the things with this like little camera. So it was fun. It was a really good time. So yeah, I felt like I got to do a lot of the fun stuff for that with all the facial stuff. And then, voicing Josie, who is just sassy.
And what is this like? Is this game got a lot of praise.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, 2023 also got a lot of praise.
Yeah.
And, obviously this was very much a revitalization for the WWE games. And
Yeah.
it was a big deal in a lot of ways. I played this game and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so what was that like to be part of, arguably one of the greatest, I guess, professional entertainment industries and titans, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, it was really cool. I went in not knowing a ton about wrestling, but I know a lot of people who love it. And so I felt like I learned a lot. Like I learned the difference between a hero and a heel and like all of those things and the monologues and the promos. And like I felt like I learned all of that stuff. And so um meeting people and chatting with friends of mine who were really into it, I was like, oh, I get what you're saying now. I understand. So it was so cool to be a part of.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoy this game, and it just, man, I still can't get it out of my head. You doing Nikki Bella, or Alexa Bliss for that matter. I just think it'd be funny.
Yeah,
It'd be great. It'd be
I'm
so
sure the
good to see.
if they had behind the scenes, which I'm sure 2K has locked up, like will never be released to the public, but I'm sure the behind the scenes of those sessions were hilarious, because I just remember laughing in the moment of like, I'm really talking like this. So it was just fun.
And then my other favorite passion that a lot of people know me for is I love Lego stuff. And I build Lego cars and I build my own Lego stuff
Nice.
and I do mosaic work and all sorts of stuff.
Oh,
Been a
that's
big
so
fan
cool.
been a big fan since I was a kid. Still
Ooh.
am. And you did Lego 2K Drive as Vicky Wheeler,
Yeah.
Bernie Backfire, Carla, and I haven't played this game yet, but I might pick it up because it sounds like a blast. It sounds like a chilled out game that's not intense.
Yeah. I mean, it's I just I just started playing today because I picked it up this weekend. And imagine like Mario Kart, but with Legos, where you can like blow apart Legos. You can build your Lego car like piece by piece in the game, which is super fun. And it has the silliness and the jokes that you expect from like a Lego movie property. Um, we talk about awesomer. We talk about liking Big Buttes. One of the lands is called Big Butte, but it's spelled butt. Vicky Wheeler definitely sings that at some point, which was fun. So there are a lot of like crazy jokes, super fun stuff. I mean, I've never laughed so hard as I did during those recording sessions because we were just making jokes and cutting up and all kinds of stuff. I was like, Lego is my type of humor for sure.
And what is that like to be just in a fun game that's not intense, that is really family friendly? Because, I would say WWE 2K22 is PG-13,
Yeah.
sort of. This is like rated E for everyone, meaning that, anybody could play this and have a good time. And if you handed this to a 6-year-old, I'm not terrified that they're going to be exposed to something that they shouldn't be.
Right. No, it's super fun because it's just a different level. It's silly, right? Yes, the stakes are still really high. Things get intense because you're racing and like you got to be the best. But then you have like it's just silly. So nobody's going to die. Like your car falls off a cliff, you're going to survive. It's going to be fine. So it takes away the seriousness. So it's just fun. It just feels like you're being a kid again and just having a blast. And it was really fun for recording for Vicky Wheeler because she's like, think of her like a newscaster throughout the whole thing that pops in for every race. And did you ever see Pitch Perfect? You can say no.
Honestly, I know of it. I just never seen it.
No, that's totally fair. So Elizabeth Banks plays an announcer for this collegiate singing competitions, and she's super snarky and super silly. And so in my audition, I based Vicky Wheeler off of her. And they were like, yes, we're booking that. That's what we want. And so it was so fun to because I love Elizabeth Banks as an actress. She's amazing. And so to be able to voice a character based off of one of her characters was super fun.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm trying to think of what Elizabeth Banks has been in because I think she just directed Cocaine Bear.
She did, yeah.
I was shocked. I was shocked when I saw that. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
I know, she's so fun. I mean, she's been in so much. Hunger Games. She's in Hunger Games. She's in, oh God, now I'm blanking on everything. But she's in a ton of stuff, and she's super funny.
what was she in Wet Hot American Summer?
She might have been. I don't know.
What was she the reporter from the music label, like infiltrating the camp? Maybe.
Maybe. Let's see.
Oh, they did like no. See, this is the important part that we need to figure out, right?
Oh, she's also in Lego Movie. She's in Lego Movie. I think she's the main chick in the Lego Movie. Oh, she's the bad guy in the Power Rangers live action. She's in Hunger Games. Zach and Miri Make a Porno. I remember that one.
That was a good one.
Fred Claus. Catch Me If You Can. Yep, Wet Hot American Summer.
That's how I know who she is. So
Yeah,
I do
she's
know
in so
much. But I want to back out of your video game stuff. And I know you've done a bunch of stuff, and I'm missing a bunch of them. I know all the ones I'm missing, all the fun ones. I'm missing Eternal Run. I'm missing Nancy Drew. I'm missing Gunvolt Chronicles, Luminous Avenger IX2.
There's a lot. That's fair.
But I definitely want to touch on some anime stuff. And I know you were in 2 movies. I think it's Oka's Inn and The Night is Short Walk on Girl. Yeah. And that movie is great.
It's so good.
It's a great movie. But what was that like? Because I think those were some of your early anime roles. And they're sort of, small roles for movies, but they're important.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Oko Zen was my first anime ever. And I got to record it with NYAV Post. And with Stephanie Shea, she directed one day, and Michael Cintern Nicholas directed me the other day. That was incredible. I had never done an anime before. It was my first time dubbing. I was so nervous. And I remember recording for her that character, Glory. And it's a very emotional, heartfelt story. And I remember afterwards when they were like, hey, the movie's coming out in theaters, go see it, all this stuff. I thought they had replaced me. I didn't invite anyone to go with me except my husband and one of our closest friends. I didn't tell anybody. I was like, they replaced me. Oh my God, they replaced me. I know they replaced me. I know they replaced me. Was what I was thinking. It's totally irrational. And then we get to the theater and the first line comes up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still in it. It's so silly. So that was amazing.
Funny. It's funny that you bring that up. I had Daniel Ba, who's Jinbei from One Piece. And he said, ask me after the One Piece Red movie comes out how I feel about my role. And I just started laughing, but because I can imagine. I mean, I get it completely.
Yeah. I mean, you just never know. And there's weirder stuff has happened, and you never know. So I had never done it before. So I wasn't sure what the process was like. Now I know. I'm like, everything's under NDA. They're not going to talk to you about it until it's up. So now I know. Now I'm like, okay, odds are I'm probably still in it. And then Night is Short, Walk On Girl. So fun. Same team brought me on for that. And same recording team, NYAV Post. And that was a blast. That was so much fun. And I just love that movie as a movie. Like even being a very small role in it, small couple of roles in it, it was just such a cool movie.
And what's cool, I don't know about Okozen, but I know The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. I think it's distributed by G Kids.
Yeah.
And so obviously, I mean, it's readily accessible. I think G Kids distributes like almost all these top movies. And so I know that, and necessarily monetarily, it might not have an impact, but it being accessible and people being able to get it, I mean, that's obviously a cool thing I would imagine too for you, where I hate to say this, but sometimes anime is impossible to find.
Yeah, 100%. And like sometimes it's hard for me to find things that I'm in. There's only so many streaming services I can like sign up for. I've run out of my free trials for some stuff, and so it's hard to find stuff for sure.
And then we already touched upon Netflix, and we're gonna go back to the land of Netflix, and we're going to Altered Carbon Resleeve.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one.
I
That
don't
was
know
really
anything about this one either, but I
mm.
know it's cyberpunk. I know that
Mhm.
there was season 1, and then there was season 2, and then I know this was in the middle between
Mm.
seasons 1 and 2, and it's a prequel, sequel slash side quest, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And I know that it was beautifully animated. It was very cool to that idea. It's similar to Cyberpunk on Netflix in a lot of ways, and it came out at a really interesting time. All of this. So, what's the story behind all of this?
Yeah, so I loved the show Altered Carbon, like the live action show, so good. I was a big fan of especially season one, and uh, I one of those instances where I got a call and they were like, "Hey, you're cast in this new anime. Show up this date, this time." And I was like, "Okay," because that happens and they don't tell you what you're doing. And so I showed up and they were like, "Okay, so have you heard of Altered Carbon?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I have." And they were like, "So there's an anime and you're doing it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Um, and so it was really cool being able to voice the lead girl in this like side quest. And the fight scenes are insane. They're so good. It's such a fun movie, like really fun movie. Uh, some of the better fight scenes that I had seen up until then. It was just so good. Yeah, cool. Not PG. Definitely like teens and adults. Very violent, but really good.
Yeah, to even go further into that too. I mean, obviously, I think Todd Haberkorn was directing that.
Yeah,
I believe.
it was my first time working with him.
And so, what was that like too? Because I like Todd Haberkorn. I think he's great. I think
Oh,
he's fantastic. And so, what was that like? And obviously, a really nice star-studded cast, a lot of people involved. And what was that
yeah.
like? It wasn't half-assed. I mean, to put it
No.
nicely.
No, absolutely. And that's why I was still like surprised when I got in it. I was like, me? But Todd is a wonderful human. He's so kind, such a great director. My first time working with him, and it just felt like we had known each other for so long. And yeah, he was really creative, and it was just we had a blast for sure.
Yeah, and then obviously being on Netflix and being accessible,
Yeah.
all that stuff is very cool in that realm. And then obviously, I want to take a step outside of Netflix and go to Rainbow High
Oh yeah. Which
because
is actually on part of it's on Netflix now, which is so funny.
so what is the story of Rainbow High? I think you're Bella Parker. I think
Yeah.
it's a very interesting one, and I think it's way more family friendly than Resleeve.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely I actually know a lot of elementary and middle school kids who love it, which is funny because it's about a high school. Uh it's wonderful. Like being a part of the original cast for that show was amazing. Like we didn't know how big it would be. We were all super excited in the cast to we were like, we're getting dolls? What? This is so cool. I have a couple of the dolls in my recording booth. And yeah, it was so fun. And I mean, I feel like my character is now infamous at this point because I think to date, she's the only character to get expelled from Rainbow High. So sorry, spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen season one. She comes back, don't worry. So
So,
that
so,
was
so
really
let's
fun.
even talk about that because what is that like to have a toy of a character you voice?
Crazy.
Because it's a game changer and it adds a lot of different I think components to it. Obviously, you're doing cons now. People
Mhm.
like getting their merch signed. it's cool to see yourself, I guess, in a store or on eBay or
Yeah.
online. And it also, I feel, adds an element of legitimacy.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense. It's kind of like when somebody has a pop Funko of their character,
Sure.
they didn't create that character, but now it adds an element of legitimacy. So what is that like?
It's very cool. I mean, walking into Target and seeing a onesie with my character on it, I'm like, if I was half my size, I would buy this because it's like it's for little girls. There's no way I could fit into that. So that's just like crazy, crazy. Yeah, it's just really cool, and feels like it feels exciting because you're seeing people walking around wearing stuff that has like your character's face on it, or they have the doll and they're doing all that stuff. It's really nice. And very exciting and like, oh, that's me. Oh my goodness. I feel the same way about cosplayers when people are cosplaying characters that I voice. I'm always like, oh my gosh, you look so cool.
See, I haven't had this experience yet, but it's weird. And I've been recognized at a con because
Mm,
people listen to me and they're like, "Yo, are you that guy?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm that guy." It's wonderful.
it's cool.
But like I would imagine because I don't know because obviously you started doing cons at this point, and I don't know if people have brought up a doll to you or merchandise, and what is that like? Because to me, that would be sort of the moment where you're like, I've hit something now where I've now not necessarily a bucket list, but clearly where it's almost like I made it type of moment.
Yeah.
It might be the way to say it. I don't know exactly the words, but I would imagine it would be like that, right? Because I think this must have happened, right?
Oh, for sure. My made it moment, which is so silly. I was at my first con, which was Anime Impulse. Gosh, I think it was a year or two ago, um, here in California, and I just went for the day because I was like, I don't know a lot about cons. I'll just try it out. Nobody's gonna come see me. It'll be fine. I had a line all day. It was crazy, and I was like, oh, okay. Uh, and so I left I was leaving for the day and I went into the bathroom, and, a girl's bathroom, especially at cons, there's always a line, always a line. So I was waiting in line, and, at cons, all the cosplayers are getting dressed in the bathrooms or adjusting their costumes or whatever.
Nerve of them. How dare
Yeah,
they?
I know. No. It's like there's nowhere else to do it. I totally get it. I'm like, as long as you're not in the toilet line, it's fine. Um, and so I went, and there's this girl adjusting her cape or something, and I was like, oh my gosh, you look so great, awesome. And I was wearing a mask, like everything, and I went into the stall, and then I just hear, oh my god, that's Brittany Cox. Oh my god, that was Brittany. Oh my god, that was Brittany Cox. And I was like, I've made it. Because I had a mask. I didn't have any, like, there was I wasn't wearing anything that was like, hey, I'm Brittany, I'm the voice of so and so. So that was my moment of like, I think I've made it. So thank you, girls in the bathroom who recognized me. You just made my day.
And then to go into another role that I know you from, it's Fina from Fina Pirate Princess. And there were parts of the show that I really liked. There were parts that I didn't like. It's like it's a 50-50 show for me. But I thought it was beautifully animated.
Yeah.
So what is the story behind this? Because there's a lot of push on this show. Crunchyroll really pushed it hard, and a few other places pushed it really hard and
Yeah.
advertised it. And what was that like? Because I know you didn't have necessarily a say in it, but it's nice when somebody goes up to bat for you or a company
Mm-hmm.
for you, regardless of what their intention is. It's kind of a cool thing. So what was that like? Because this was, I think, one of your first lead roles.
Yeah. This was definitely my first and only title role, as the voice of Finna. Yeah, I mean, gosh, that show is so close to my heart because we all put so much into it. This is the first anime where they were animating as we were recording. So I wouldn't typically, when you're recording an anime, the scenes are done, everything's been animated, and you're just doing mouth flaps and stuff. And the show's probably already out. It's just not out in English yet. This show, it was all coming out at the same time because it was releasing on Adult Swim as well, because it was also an Adult Swim original. And so we would be seeing boards. Things weren't ready. Instead of backgrounds, sometimes there's just a picture of Japan. So it was so fascinating. It felt like we got a peek behind the curtain. And the fact that the creators were so supportive, usually creators for dubs and animes, they're fine with the English voices and they have some say, but they don't really care about us. Like we're not originating the characters. It's all that stuff. But with this show, the creators were so involved and really supported us and loved what we were doing. And, it was such a good show. I'm so sad that it was over. And it's such a shame that it happened during the HBO switch over and the Crunchyroll merger and all that stuff. I felt like it was just in a weird pocket. And
Did you feel that it was like weird timing and then a bunch of other stuff was going on, and it was just corporate red tape kind of got in the way, and then perhaps it just fell through the cracks?
I think so. I mean, who's to say? But it was supposed to be up on HBO. It was going to go up on HBO Max, and then it got cut. So it was one of the, how everything got cut from stuff. So yeah, it was just a shame. And we were all hoping for a season 2. I mean, maybe we'll still get a season 2. That would be nice. But yeah, I mean, I loved every minute of that show. As an actor, that is some of the best acting I've ever done on anything. Yeah, especially the finale. So it was a beautiful show. And I loved watching it. I really enjoyed watching it, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes I don't like watching stuff I'm in, just because I'm hypercritical. But I loved watching this show. But yes, I agree. There are some things that I'm like, maybe if they had more time, be a little different.
See, the fact that it was coming out in real time,
yeah,
probably why parts of that were a little bit rough, because there was no, I mean, the way I watched the show is that there was 2 or 3 blocks of episodes. I'm like, okay, maybe needed a little bit of a nicer editing touch on it.
Sure.
And there was things that were coming out. I didn't know it was actually original animation. I didn't know it was coming out in almost in real time.
Yeah.
Either. So that probably explains why. And that might change my evaluation on it slightly. Because I mean, it's not that explains certain components of it actually really well. But I digress on that. But I'm not an animator, so I can just tell you what I watch when I enjoy and what I want to see. And I definitely wanted something wild to happen. I wanted One Piece the British way in that show.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
That would have been, I think we were all expecting it, because none of us, talking to the cast members, none of us expected the ending. None of us, and we still had some questions. We were like, wait, but what about this? And what about this? But what about this?
It got weird. It got weird, that show. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
No.
And there was flashbacks, and they were up in heaven and they were down on earth. I'm like, this has gotten a little out of bounds here. But I was hoping for One Piece, the British version.
Yeah.
And ninjas. It was an interesting one, to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least. I'm not saying there wasn't effort. I'm just saying that it's not for everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was beautifully animated. I thought that the voice cast was good in it, but I was like, where are we going with this thing? This is out there, even for me. And I like some weird stuff. So, but I digress. I digress on that. But you actually brought up something very interesting with this, is that right now in anime, correct me if I'm wrong, they're I think 3 or 4 weeks behind Japan sometimes in certain shows, which is really close.
Yeah.
Because this is before your time and my time. I think I could say that without being offensive. that it used to take like 3 months or 4 months for one episode to come over.
Yeah.
Now, if it's taking 3 or 4 weeks, that's pretty good. I think Crunchyroll is pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Like an episode comes out in Japan, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, the English of that episode 1 comes out. So they're like 3 or 4 weeks behind. So what is that like for you? Because I know you haven't done a bunch of anime, but it's pretty close on a timeline to when it comes out from Japan to America.
I mean, season 2 of Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro just came out. I think that the finale's out and everything. And coming back for season 2, my character, exactly what you said, episodes are 3-4 weeks. And so what they had to do for me, because they didn't know how many episodes my character would be in. So they had me hold 2 hours or more every week. And they were like, we'll let you know the week before if you're in the episode. So it was coming out so fast. We were just holding time just to see if, okay, she's in this episode. Great. You're coming in. Oh, she's not in this episode. Don't worry about next week. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. So yeah, it moves pretty fast. And luckily, so many people are on the recording side for the English are so passionate about anime and understand it so well. And a lot of the actors as well are brilliant. It's so it moves pretty fast. So once it gets into our hands, it moves pretty fast.
It's amazing. It depends on the show.
Sure.
I don't watch the dub. Sometimes I do watch the dub because sometimes I'm impatient. I'm impatient. I'm sorry. I want to watch my shows, guys. Which means you people need to work faster. I'm sorry. Hey, if Sony bought Crunchyroll for $1.2 billion, they can make this process go faster. Sure. I'm sorry. It's just a matter that they don't want to do it and they don't want to invest for my sake. This is about me. It's not about anybody else. I want my anime and I want my anime fast.
Give it to me now.
I'm sorry. This is all about me, and everybody else might benefit, but that's okay. And then I want to talk about one more role, and I'm going to get the name wrong. It's like Nier Automata version 1.1.
Yeah, Nier Automata.
Yeah. I don't even know this show either. What is it? B2, B1, A3?
Yeah, no, it's based off the video game. So this is the anime.
Never played it.
I haven't played it either. So, but it's a beautiful game. Really great cast.
I have no doubt about that. I just never got around to it. I can't play everything, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much out there. It's hard.
But what is this like? Because going from a video game to an anime that I guess is well respected, people love. People have been cosplaying this game forever, and now there's an anime. I know it's popular, and I know that there's been a lot of reviews, and I think it's been well respected. So what is this like to have a part in this show and get to kind of play in that space a little bit?
Yeah. I hadn't played the game. I'm not a huge gamer. If anybody has followed me, they know. I dabble, but I'm really bad at playing. I get too stressed out. But I heard of this game, and I know a lot of people in the video game cast who are also in the anime. And it was cool. I got the audition when I was actually up in Canada at G Anime. And I was like, oh, I know what this is. Oh, this would be so cool. So I auditioned in my hotel room, which was right beside the ice machine. So you hear in the background, "Kokong, kokong, kokong." It was terrible. So I emailed them. I was like, I'm sorry, this sounds like shit. I'm so sorry. But yeah, then I booked it, and it was super fun. I got to play Ken, who just pops in and out. She's a soldier. She's super cool. And then I got to play a bunch of robots with Abby Trott, who I adore. And they had already recorded Abby. They're like death robots. They just go, Rrr! And they just yell. And so I got to hear what she did. And they were like, so do something different than what she did. We just need more robots. So that was really fun. It's a cool show. I've seen some clips from it, and it's a really cool show. And I'm glad they brought, speaking of original cast, I'm glad they brought the cast back, which is cool.
I'm not anti the show. I just haven't seen it yet.
Sure. Well, check it out. Add it if you're in the mood for an action. It's a good one from what
It'll
I've
be on
seen.
my list this weekend.
There you go.
Or 3-day weekend, everybody. So there you go.
Woo woo.
First one in like 4 months. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
But and I know I'm still missing a bunch of your roles.
Oh,
I mean, you have I think like 40 roles collectively, maybe 45. You don't have that many roles, and I'm still missing a bunch of them on this. But I do want to back out of everything because you do a bunch of other stuff too. It's all right. The Seahawks are going to be rough this year.
oh yeah, I know.
It's all right.
I know, it's fine.
But for those who don't get the joke, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of insight. You've done some work for the Seahawks. You've done some work for a lot of different people in commercial,
Yeah.
beyond just voice acting. And that's where that joke comes from. And so obviously you just don't do video games. You don't do anime. You do some commercial work. You do some other voice work. You've done a bunch of other stuff, I guess, because corporate voice over world stuff is just as important. And so obviously I just wanted to mention that
Aw.
voice acting is not just video games, anime. There's a lot of other components involved with it as well.
You know, commercials pay the bills.
I had Greg Hauser on a while ago, and he does a lot of commercial voiceover work,
Yeah.
and it's very, very, very important. And the mistake I made is that I should have went to his house to do the interview. So that would have been a fascinating thing because he has a bunch of microphones that are like really, really expensive.
Oh.
But I digress. We all make mistakes. It would have been a fun drive up, I think, to like Pennsylvania. But I digress. But I do want to ask and touch upon where you think the anime and voice acting world is going, and the dubbing world and the video game world is going, before I give you a chance to self-promote, because you're 6 years in, you're not a quote unquote veteran, but you're not new, and you're just like in the thick of, I guess, the middle of your career. And so where do you see it all going? Obviously, COVID has had an impact to some degree and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the great and frustrating thing about this industry is you never know. You know, you could have a great year, you could have a terrible year. I feel very lucky that I've been working pretty consistently since moving to LA. So who knows? I'm directing more, which has been really cool, and creating more stuff. So I've been branching out into different things to just try different stuff in case, you know, we all get taken over by AI robots and you don't need my voice anymore, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm excited to see where anime and video games go. I mean, the storytelling and the mediums of video game and anime are so huge. The fan bases are so huge. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, and they're beautiful. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what else comes out. I'm excited to see more different types of stories, you know. And I love the fact that there's more inclusion now, and that there are different types of stories and being told, and different types of people being involved. I think that's really exciting. So, yeah.
And then obviously I've kept you long enough. But before we go, I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself. Where could people bother you, find you, hit you up, all that fun stuff? What can you disclose, if anything, about what you're in currently, or what you're working on, or anything of that nature? Because I know certain things are still up in the air, but I know you're in a bunch of shows that are still coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anybody who wants to follow me or find me, I'm on Instagram and Twitter it's just my name, Brittany C. Cox. And yeah, the newest game that's out is Lego 2K Drive, which is super fun. Highly recommend. You don't have to be great at video games to play it, speaking for myself, and it's good for all ages, which is super fun. And yeah, if you guys have kids or littles, or just like fun, silly fart jokes, I've created a show called Zoe's Mythical Menagerie. It's a podcast, and it features some of your favorite actors for you anime video game fans. Kellen Goff is one of our lead actors who I love working with. Directing him is a dream. So yeah, Zoe's Mythical Menagerie, wherever you get your podcast, highly recommend checking it out. And I hope to see you guys at some future cons. If you want me to come out and see you, let them know. Have them request me. I would love to come visit now that I'm doing that more. So I have a few more coming up this year. I'm going to Oklahoma, and I'm going to the Manchester, UK, and a couple more. So it'll be really fun. And Andrew, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Like, I really appreciated you reaching out and for asking such great questions. And I loved meeting your mom. Tell her I said hi. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna keep saying it, and I've been saying it for a while, is that you have to support what you want to see more of. You have to support people. What that means is following them on social media, actually buying their merch at cons. If they have prints, obviously, doing a bunch of other stuff, things that they do. If you do a streaming lease signing, something along those lines, that's massive. And all that stuff matters. Also, requesting at cons is a big deal, because that helps tremendously. And all that stuff matters, because without any of that, and without, obviously social media and supporting and all that fun stuff, this stuff doesn't get made and people don't get work. So, and also watch anime legally. That's a big one.
That's always
a big
good.
one. Buy Crunchyroll, guys. Just buy Crunchyroll or HD Live or wherever else you get your anime.
Yeah.
Because it does make a huge difference, and it's super important, because again, without actually buying anime legally or watching it or streaming it, that also doesn't get made. So keep that in the back of everybody's head. As far as I'm concerned, everything that I got going on, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Hit me up on social media. I enjoy when people follow me up on social media. I enjoy when people subscribe on YouTube. I have over 500 interviews up on YouTube right now.
Wow.
I've been doing this forever. I've been doing this
Congrats.
for almost 10 years. For almost 10 years. And I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. So there's an interview for you out there. I cannot guarantee you will get smarter, but I can guarantee you'll be entertained. There's an interview on every sector ever on my channel. You name it, I've done it. I've been hard pressed that it has not been found yet, including everything from, cryptocurrency interview to a bunch of other stuff that may or may not be wise to say live on air. But I digress. And that's everything I got. I also have a t-shirt up there that's making fun of Gundam, Fallout, Taco Bell, and a bunch of other stuff. So you can check that out, everybody, if you would like it. And all that fun stuff. And also, I run an eBay store, so I buy and deal with collectibles. So you can check that out as well, everybody. And that's everything I got. So I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, well, thank you all so much for listening. This has been really fun. And I hope, we made you laugh or entertained you a little bit. And yeah, follow me, follow Andrew. Let's hang out and do cons and stuff. So thank you all so much. And Andrew, thank you again for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I couldn't have said that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.